Last presentation today is going to be with AHartman. Amir has gotten to know our members. He's spoken at several of our last meetings. He led an AI enablement workshop that we conducted with 3 of our member companies a couple months ago. And he is going to be helping me lead a new roundtable we're putting in place, the AI enablement roundtable. Amir had a career with Oracle, in charge of customer strategy, customer management, and did a lot of great things there. Amir also wrote the best-selling business Amazon book, Net Ready. Believe it or not, at the time that the internet came on board with all of us, and companies were figuring out how to take advantage of the internet, of all things. And he's now he's working on a release of his newest book, AI Ready. Amir, let's have you go ahead. I think you're sharing, so looking forward to your discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Happy Wednesday, everybody. And what I'll do, I want to share with you, the past, obviously I'm working on the new book, and I do quite a bit of work with customers on their AI strategy. And I wanted to share with you just some results that we've gotten over the past, for 2024, what we saw, but especially focused on AI readiness, right? Obviously, that's the theme of the book. Not so much focused on the excitement and the wonderful things we can do with AI, which are infinite, but just share with you what we're seeing by way of adoption at the enterprise level and some of the challenges. So I'll kind of share with you those findings, and people, please ask questions. We can have questions at the end as well, but don't if you want to interrupt. If somebody can just look at the chat, that would be great. I'll start off with just some kind of initial setup. All right. So again, we've seen obviously tremendous amount of excitement. 23, everybody was excited when it first came to light. It was the end of 22, but we saw a lot of experimentation in 24. Close to 90% of companies are experimenting with AI. The difference is that they are in what I would call proof of concepts or pilots. And here's an interesting stat: about 10% of them, of pilots, actually end up going to production. So that's something to think about and keep in mind. So it's a little bit of a tightrope that we have to walk, in the sense that you have to experiment and you have to do pilots in order to learn. But just realize that there are some reasons why only 10% end up going to production. And then obviously that's even less when you look at those that went to production and get scaled across the enterprise. There's certainly a lack of focus that we're seeing on a lack of focus on what value does the tangible, measurable value does the AI initiative deliver, and is it focused and does it integrate into our workflow? Those are things that we're seeing companies have trouble with. And then the last point on the bottom is it's not all about technology, as we heard in the morning. And even with the storytelling, it's very fascinating. We had the storytelling presentation discussion. My last newsletter was focused on the storytelling, but obviously it was an AI piece. And storytelling is huge with respect to developing and deploying and adopting AI. But yeah, if you look at what companies are struggling with, it's not so much in the technology space. And in fact, only about 30% of the cost, just from a cost standpoint, has to do with technology. The other things are about change management, about training, about adoption, integration and APIs, and managing those integrations. Those things are really where the bulk of the cost is with respect to AI deployment and adoption. So we took a survey. We wanted to see what worries the leaders have with respect to AI enabling their organization, whether it was a team or a function. And these are some of the top worries that came up. You can see, I'm not going to go through all of them. You can see some of them, obviously, hallucinations and incomplete or incorrect answers was a top worry that leaders have. And frankly, we should be cognizant of this. I mean, obviously, these tools are amazing. Whether you're talking about ChatGPT or Claude or some other applications that use one of those language models. Perplexity I use multiple times a day as an example. But they do hallucinate, and the hallucination rate varies quite a lot. It can go from about 8%, but depending on what the task is, 8% up to 40%. There was a recent study that looked at the hallucination rates of some of the top language models, and ChatGPT was close to 40%. Claude was in the high 20s. So it's just something to realize and think about. Going back to the point Chris made a little earlier in the morning, or at least my morning, was just being cognizant that this stuff can happen. There are things you can do to reduce hallucination for sure, but you need to be aware of them. And then obviously you need to, depending on what the context is for, if you want it to be really more fact-based and accurate, you really need to think about how can I drive the factual leaning of these language models versus, because these language models actually want to please you. In fact, I did a recent post, there was a study done that in certain cases, it looked at all the different top models, not only do they want to please you, but they actually intentionally try to hide the fact that they're trying to please you. So if you have it walk through kind of a reasoning, it'll identify that it's the logic and perhaps even the flaw in the logic, but try to intentionally hide the fact that there's a flaw. So I found that very interesting. I did a post recently. I can send it to folks if you want to reach out. I'll send you the academic paper that I read. But again, you can see some of these other issues that are driving concern at the leadership level. I think the one close to the bottom, which is really they're a little bit concerned about the potential elimination of jobs, or the need to redefine jobs. And that's an area that's really interesting. We'll talk a little bit about that. I think there is a need, not just an opportunity, but a need for leaders and especially HR leaders to step in here. I'm doing a study right now that's looking at the need to re-architect jobs and roles. If you look at LinkedIn or another job board, let's say Indeed or whatever you guys use, and look up a regular, let's say, marketing job, director of customer communication, for example, you'll notice that there is very little, almost nothing. This is not an AI job. It's a traditional marketing job. There's almost nothing in there in the job descriptions that talks about AI skills. Now, obviously, I know for a fact, and we all know that AI is, especially in marketing, is making a huge dent. There's not an area in marketing where AI is not playing a significant role. So you would think that if you're hiring a new communications director or lead gen person, that they should have AI skills. So that's something that HR needs to step in and start re-architecting some of these roles. What do you look for? If you're hiring a marketing person, what kind of AI skills should you be looking for? What kind of experience? And not just skills, but I'd like to see their projects. And that's a key area that's missing for folks, is tangible proof that you've worked on some projects using AI. Now, this was the qualitative. So when we did the survey, we actually left room for qualitative responses. And these are not worries so much as they are challenges in deploying AI. And you can see the top 10. And so again, these are, I think for the big survey, we had about 187 responses. For the qualitative, it was an opt-in. We had 117 qualitative responses, and you can see some of the issues there. Obviously, skills and training was a big one, but you can see some of the others. Whether it's data quality was a big one. Obviously, security and privacy and ethics. The pace of change was a huge challenge and is a huge challenge. We all see it. Personally, we all see it. I can't keep up with this stuff, and I'm supposed to be pretty knowledgeable in this area, but it's so hard for me to keep up with all the changes and who's doing what. We're making, talk about co-pilot discussion before. We're making serious decisions on things that are very, very new and changing constantly. And so that needs to be thought through a little bit. Obviously, companies and organizations have certain relationships with, that's Microsoft or whomever it is. But, that's something to keep thinking about is, do I want to place a bet on a certain player and lock myself in where this stuff is changing so rapidly? All right. Now, I've asked this question before. I've probably met many of you or some of you in June when I came to speak at the members meeting. I'm going to ask it again. How many of you believe that your organization has a robust and ongoing AI literacy program? Emphasis on program. I'm not talking about you've got an AI class that people are taking. I'm talking about a programmatic effort to drive and upskill AI literacy. If we can just do like raise your hand. I don't know if you want to do a vote, Lynn, or you just have folks raise their hand. Let me know what you're seeing. So
we could just do a waterfall chat, so you could answer how many of you do you think? And you can just say, we do, all of us do, or none of us. And I can then see that if everybody just hits the chat button all at the same time, we'll get that data. Those of you that are with us here. So how many of you have a robust ongoing program? If you do, say we do. And if you don't, say we don't. And just, okay, I got one do not. There we go. See, that's what I needed, was just someone to lead in there. So a couple more people. Don't. Well, I'm waiting for a do now. Who's got a do? Anybody? Do not. Nope. Oh boy. Okay. I think that our work is cut out for us, Amir.
Yeah, we're getting a trend, obviously. I'm sure there's some folks.
Yeah.
And that's what the reality looks like across organizations. Yeah, I think you've seen this chart before, but I'll kind of reemphasize it, right? So I want to focus on this a little bit because it has multiple effects. Number one, you're seeing, we talked about in the beginning, the sentiment is quite strong. So leadership, whether it's marketing leadership or CEOs, feels quite positive about the potential for AI to transform marketing or whatever the case may be. They're very excited about its potential. It's not that it's easy, they're just excited. But you have about 20% that have a robust program. And I'm going to show you some stats. You'll see some slightly different numbers. I'll kind of highlight why it's different. But you have 20% of them have an ongoing program for upskilling their people. So that's a problem in the sense that obviously it's going to make it very, very difficult to drive adoption of your AI program. If you're not enabling your people, training your people, upskilling with the proper skills, your people, you're not going to drive adoption. It's going to be very, very difficult. Now, yes, you can integrate and make it part of, like Copilot part of Microsoft 365, or if you're an Oracle shop, it's going to be, although core functionality in Oracle financials or supply chain are embedded with AI capabilities. So obviously you can make them use it that way. But it's going to be very difficult to drive adoption if you're not upskilling your people. So that's one thing. And you're certainly not going to see the results, right? So that's the key. If I'm hoping for results, positive results of this potential that I see and I'm being told about, but yet I'm not willing to invest for some reason, I'm not investing in my people, you're going to be let down. Right? That's that wishful thinking gap we talked about. These are all things that are controllable, right? I'm not saying it's easy to develop a robust AI program, and we can talk what that means. To me, robust means it's not just a single class on prompt engineering or the foundations of AI. It's a program. It's a portfolio of initiatives that includes things like classes for sure, maybe speakers, maybe it's a mentorship program where you connect a group of folks with let's say a forward thinking AI forward individual to be a mentor. Maybe it's like I said, a speaker series. Guests. You invite guests, sharing win stories or success stories. Go back to the storytelling presentation we just had. Being able to kind of quantify and quantify the so what of this story and communicate it to folks across the organization. So there's so many things you can do. Team projects. One of the things in the personal AI assessment, because we have an organizational assessment for readiness, we have a personal AI readiness assessment. One of the things that's clear is that people are not doing projects. They may be taking a class in AI, but what they're not doing is building a project. And that's really critical, is to get your hands dirty and build a project or a set of projects, whether it's a customized GPT for yourself, your personal self, or your organization, or just get your hands dirty and build things. That's a key area. That's great ways to learn. So here's what we saw. So obviously, the training strategies or approaches are not kind of in line with their aspirations, right? We had a fairly large amount that are figuring out things on their own, like kind of very ad hoc approach to upskilling and learning. We had those that have a formal training, right? So they have formal classes, not a program, like I said, but they have at least formal classes. B2B organizations were better, right? 29, almost 30% of them have formal classes. If you look at B2C, and I know this is a B2B audience, but just FYI, so maybe you can feel good because you're B2B. So B2C, for whatever reason, was 21%. All right, so when I said less than 20% before in the other chart, is the robustness of the program, right? So this is a formal training, class versus a robust ongoing program, right? We have things that we do yearly, for example, we train our people on ethical behavior, for example. When I was at Oracle, we had to take compliance class, a certain DEI class, for example. AI has to be something that is, especially because it changes so fast. So how to do responsible and ethical AI? That probably needs to be, what can we do? What do we not do? And how do we do it? Those things need to be ingrained in our folks. So that's something for us to think about, right? It takes a little bit of thoughtfulness as to what should or could a robust AI literacy program look for my organization, and how do we where's a good place to start? It's not going to be perfect, right? These things aren't perfect, but where do we start? And then a year from now, how do we tweak it, right? So strongly encourage folks to have that as one of the top issues on your priorities. And here's something interesting. Okay, so what we saw so the AI readiness, and I'll introduce that a little bit for those who forgot about it. It has kind of 4 elements to it, right? One is a kind of a leadership piece, and it has to do about strategy. Do we have an AI strategy, a vision, so on and so forth? It so happened, so that the companies that scored, like the blue and the green, those were companies that scored higher, right? As far as having an AI strategy developed. Okay, so what we saw was a connection. About half of the organizations that have a formal training program scored significantly higher as far as their AI strategy. Right, so if you want to get an AI strategy going, one good place to start is with an AI literacy program. So we thought that was a very interesting connection. So this is the dreaded AI readiness, right? Those 4 pillars that you guys are probably have seen if you've been in any of my talks. That basically that QR code on the right on the top right of the slide. That's just for you if you want to click. That's the link to the organizational AI readiness. You can go there anytime and take it, for yourself and see how your organization from your perspective stacks up. You'll get it takes probably 5 to 7 minutes max. The personal one, which I'll bring up in a little bit, takes literally 3 minutes. If you want to see how do I personally stack up as far as my own readiness, and then you'll get a summary report, see how you stack up against the average and best in class, and some recommendations. But I'll just kind of very quickly, right? We have leadership, governance, competencies or capabilities, and technology. Right? Leadership, very quickly. Well, it's about vision, strategy. Do we have a 12 to 18 month roadmap? This is not a kind of a 5-year kind of strategy, right? This the cycle time that we're talking about is much shorter. But do we have a 12 to 18 month picture or roadmap of what our AI journey is going to look like? Has it been communicated across the organization? Governance, about roles, responsibility, accountability. How do we measure the efficacy of AI? How do we organize around AI? Should it be centralized? Should it be federated? Should it be decentralized? Should every functional area be allowed to do what it wants? And how do we finance or fund AI? Right, those kinds of things. Capabilities or competencies, those are about, do we have the skills? Do we have the ability to go from pilot to production in 3 months? Those kinds of things. And technology is some of the obvious things, right? But it has a lot to do with, do we have the data that's necessary? Is it quality data? Do we have what's called technical debt? Do we have technology legacy that makes it more difficult for us to do AI effectively? So, for example, do I have systems that are very customized? The more customized your systems are, your core systems, the more difficult it is going to be to integrate AI into those systems. There's other things that drive technical debt, but that's just to give you a bit of an example. The average, so far we've got about, I think 180 something responses. The average organization falls at the slightly above aware and at the low end of enabled, right? And there is actually a difference, right? For those companies who score high towards the AI fueled, those companies are actually seeing some results, some tangible ROI from their bets, right? From their initiatives. And this is just one example I wanted to show you. I just took the leadership snapshot. So we have a kind of a dashboard of the results. I just took the leadership pillar. And you can see on the left-hand part of the picture here is just showing which ones are kind of, what percentage are leading, like they're scored really high and are leading on the leadership pillar. So 10% is where the number is now. Actually, it actually raised because it was at 8%. Obviously, it changes all the time. It was at 8% about a week ago, and it was at 12% a few weeks ago. So it kind of fluctuates as we collect more data. All right, so we can see 10% of organizations that took the assessment are leaders in that area, right? The bulk falls between they're getting better and improving, and then the about 30%, close to 30%, are in that middle. Kind of, this is a Likert scale of a 1 to 5. Right, so 3 is a so-so. You're kind of it's okay, average score, not great, it's just in the middle. Then if you look at the right-hand side, we took the elements of the 5 questions in leadership, and this is an online shortened version. The bigger version is an 80 statement instrument, right? Obviously, I was going to put that online because nobody would take it, but then we whittled it down to create an online version for 5 elements for each of the pillars. You can see that the average for strategic plans, right, that part of the leadership bucket is 3.3, so just above, right, so just about so-so, right? Same thing with senior management involvement, right? Leadership buy-in, right smack in the middle. The 12 to 18-month roadmap, less so. Then the vision, for some reason, to communicate to the organization, it's lower. So that's an area. This is all in your control as a leader, right? Nothing that you can't control. So just something to think about. And I have a kind of have a snapshot of this for each of the other 3 pillars. I don't want to spend time doing it, but I just want to give you a sense of, as an example. So as I said, the ones that are scoring the highest, those companies who are best in class on the readiness, obviously their scores are much different. And again, it's not the only thing that's shaping, but it's one key factor that's shaping, are folks going to AI forward, and are they getting results from their AI investments? I think some of you may have seen this framework. I know I probably talked about it without the picture, and but I'll reintroduce this again, right? This is something you want to think about. Let's say as a marketing leader, what is my marketing AI portfolio, right? The portfolio is how are you allocating your attention to AI, right? The kinds of initiatives. And so the 2 key factors are, again, how business critical is this process or application of AI to my business, and how new or innovative it is on the horizontal axis to the marketplace, not to you, but to the marketplace. And so you have essentially 4 core investment categories. There's actually another 2 that I use, like things like compliance, for example, kind of keep the lights on, and compliance. Compliance are the things that you just have to do. It could be an industry that if you don't do it, you're going to get penalized. But the other 4 elements are fairly straightforward constructs, right? We're going to need to run the business, improve the business, and that means we're going to get margin, some kind of a margin improvement, grow the business as top line, and innovate the business. We don't know. It's a bet, right? So that's the way for you to think about it. In my marketing organization, what does my AI portfolio look like? And this is what the average company looks like. Okay, again, 85 moving towards 90% of all the initiatives are kind of the bottom left, run the business. Right? 10, close to 10% are driving margin improvement. Less than 5% is for top line growth, and almost 0 is what I would categorize as innovate the business. Again, this is not a picture of or the quality of an organization. It doesn't mean that you're a poor leader if you look like this. This is just the facts. The question is, is this a portfolio that resonates with you? Does this work for your organization? Or do you want to, given your priorities, do you want to switch up the portfolio somehow? So that's something that leaders can take control over. Let's look at and take an inventory of the kinds of AI initiatives we have going on, and map them onto this framework, and then ask yourselves, is that what you want? Do we need to keep certain things? Do we need to, or are we getting certain results from these different portfolio investments? Should we organize around them in the same way? So there's lots of questions you can ask by using this framework. I think it's a good way to start. I always start with, after doing an assessment, I always work with the leaders to take an inventory of the kinds of initiatives you have going on, and let's talk about them. So if I were to kind of leave you with a few things, I would kind of leave you with these thoughts in terms of how do I get started. I think, getting an understanding for how ready am I as a team, as a function, as an organization to take advantage of AI is a good place to start. I mean, it's one thing to understand the use cases and opportunities. It's another thing to understand, am I ready for these? Obviously, building, as I said earlier, got to be one of the top things to do is, can I create an ongoing literacy program across the organization, and even in collaboration with other functions, for example? Can I develop a comprehensive strategy that's really focused? This is where the tricky part is for many leaders is, I know I need to learn, and I know we need to experiment in order to learn, but letting 1,000 flowers bloom and having a bunch of siloed AI activities in a whole bunch of different pockets is counterproductive. So how do I balance? How do I walk that tightrope, or how that balance beam between experimentation and focus? Really understand, is my data ready? The data that I have that the AI is going to use, is it quality data? Is it structured in a good way so AI can leverage it? Obviously, make it a priority. People talk about responsible and ethical AI a lot, but they don't necessarily implement processes to ensure responsible and ethical AI. I don't know if you guys are keeping up with AI. We haven't had a big blow up yet, right? It's going to happen. We haven't had major losses besides sort of the big heavyweight rich people who are suing each other. Let's say Elon Musk and Sam Altman, for example. That's one lawsuit. But I'm talking about where there's been a complete debacle, either misappropriation or poor use of customer data, or something even worse. There was there's a lawsuit going on in Texas. I don't know how many are familiar with this. It's not really funny, but I guess a teenager, I think it was 14 years old teenager in Texas, was using a chatbot to help him deal with his parents, right? He was upset that his parents put restrictions on his gaming. And he was corresponding with the chatbot, what I do. And it got so heated with the exchange that the chatbot actually recommended that he get physical with his parents. And he actually ended up murdering his parents. Now the rest of the family is now suing this company called Character AI, very popular one that makes individual chatbots for people like ourselves. But that's just an example. And I don't want to get melodramatic about it, but it's just an example, and it's an early, simple example of how AI can go wrong. So it's really important that in your marketing organization, you define what ethical and responsible AI practices are. What does it look like, and how do I even create a ethical and responsible AI sort of document that people can see what should be on it. So there's simple things like that. Even, for example, I was working with a company that wanted to create a council, an AI council, to help make decisions and direction and get input. even something like that needs to be thought through a little bit, right? And so it's a little tricky because on the one hand, you don't want, I'm not a big fan of having too many committees and councils, but it's important to have some sense of direction and how we make decisions, for example, on what we're going to invest. But if you're going to have an AI council, what should it look like? Who should be on that council? What should that council do? When they meet, what should they produce? How should that council be measured? Those kinds of things. Those are it's seemingly fairly simple to do, but needs to be thought through a little bit. Again, be maniacal. And one thing I'm really pushing, be maniacal about what problem you're trying to solve and what value are you expecting for it to realize. And are you going to measure that value over time to see if it's on track? So be maniacal about, again, value creation. And again, just keep in mind that this is an ongoing journey, that it's not just an initiative, right? It's something that needs to be revisited on a regular basis. So I'm going to just pause here. For those who are interested in doing the personal AI readiness assessment, so this is just, go on there, literally takes you 3 minutes, fairly straightforward questions. You click on that QR code, it will take you there. You'll get, again, similar to what I said, you'll get a mail back of a report. Here's how personally AI ready you are. Here's how you stack up to others. And here's some recommendations based on what you answered to improve your personal AI readiness score. Some practical advice there that you can just get for free. So anyway, I'm going to stop there. I think what I'm going to do, we've talked with Rand. We're going to make the AI readiness assessment available to organizations. Obviously it'll be at the ISBM member price for you guys. So if that's something you're interested in, let's say you have a team of people or a particular function in marketing, you want to assess your readiness. Again, you get the report. You get also, we'll do a 90-minute workshop to review the report, whether it's in person or virtual, whatever you want. So that's something you can email me or Rand about. But let me open it up to questions. What you're experiencing as far as AI readiness, any questions you may have, even on some of the other topics earlier in the morning. Let's just open it up to the floor.
All right, so if you can go to the chat window and type some things in there. We do have a note already from Ralph, who is, got some perspective from times long ago for some of us. It seems like AI is being assimilated faster, or at least adopted or used faster than what we saw when the web came along in your previous book, Net Readiness.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about that, Amir?
Yeah, absolutely. I've never seen anything like it. The adoption, the pace of adoption and deployment, the new ideas and use cases that are coming. I've literally never seen anything like it. It's incredible how fast it is, how advanced. Even just if you just watch the large language model wars that are going on right now, you have hundreds of large language models out there. Some are very specialized, verticalized. I'm talking about even the big players. You got obviously Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta with their Llama family, and then an up-and-comer called Mistral from France. And then you've got somebody it's not really a language model, but Perplexity, which is one of my favorite tools, is not, I wouldn't call it a language model because it can use all of those language models for its purpose. It's more of a tool, and it's all over the place. I mean, I kind of post daily, and I think about 25% of my posts are on Perplexity in terms of the moves I'm making. I mean, I don't know how many people use Perplexity, but I strongly encourage you to do so. Not so much because I'm advocating the use of the tool, but it's really fascinating. They've gone from what I would call an AI search tool, which I frankly right now, I use Google search very sparingly. And that to me is amazing because I mean, I think 95% of the planet uses Google search. But It's not only I use it for Google search or for AI search, but it does commerce now. You can actually buy on the spot with a search, and so they're making lots of moves. But yeah, it's incredible. Just the advancements in terms of video and vision capabilities, the improvement in language, the reasoning improvement. They're all chasing each other. So it's just that space. Forget about all these applications that are leveraging these language models for specific applied applications. But if you just follow this language model war that's going on, it's almost impossible to follow. It's literally, it's daily. I don't know about daily, although right now it's daily for OpenAI because they did this 12 days of Christmas. They call it 12 days of shipmas, because they're literally shipping a release of enhancements literally every day until Christmas. Yeah, I've never seen such pace in my life. I mean, the internet, it's nothing compared to what's happening right now.
Great. Thank you, Amir. And I'm looking to see if anybody else has any other comments or questions, just keeping that open. I appreciate your offer to help folks with their assessments. I really do encourage folks to consider putting that on their to-do list in January. Well, your contact information is here. And of course, as Rand mentioned earlier, all of the slides will be sent to everybody and it is recorded. So Rand, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Amir. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I do want to remind everybody that we have a suite of some AI curricular offerings. And as always, if you want to do something, just contact me and we'll make it happen. So